The daughter will bring down the father. Michael Wolff quotes Steve Bannon saying exactly that about Ivanka Trump in an article that Michael Wolff wrote today in The Hollywood Reporter, explaining how he got access to the Trump White House to write his new book, Fire and Fury, Inside the Trump White House. Michael Wolff, who will join us here on this program Monday night, describes the factions in the Trump White House this way. Jared and Ivanka were against Priebus and Bannon, trying to push both men out. Bannon was against Jared and Ivanka and Priebus, practicing what everybody thought were dark arts against them. Priebus, everybody's punching bag, just tried to survive another day. By late spring, the larger political landscape seemed to become almost irrelevant, with everyone focused on the more lethal battles within the White House itself. This included screaming fights in the halls and in front of a bemused Trump in the Oval Office when he was not the one screaming himself. Today, President Trump, the Trump staff, and the Trump lawyers did everything they possibly could to sell more copies of Michael Wolff's new book, including the utterly empty threat to sue Steve Bannon for things he said in the book, to sue Michael Wolff for writing the book, and to sue the book's publisher for publishing the book. The cease and desist letter written by Donald Trump's lawyers is the most legally empty such letter I have ever read. The most naive question of the day has been, will Donald Trump really sue Steve Bannon or Michael Wolff or the publisher? Speaking as someone who Donald Trump has threatened to sue, I can report to America with 100% confidence that Donald Trump will not dare to sue Michael Wolff or the publisher or Steve Bannon. The president's empty legal threat was greeted by the publisher's announcement that they are speeding up the publication of the book so that it will be available for you to purchase tomorrow instead of next week. Sam Nunberg, the campaign staffer who worked with Donald Trump the longest and knew him better than any other campaign staffer, is quoted in Michael Wolff's book as saying this about Donald Trump: he's just a effing fool. Today, Chuck Todd asked Sam Nunberg if he said that.
I don't remember exactly saying that, but those are certainly sentiments I have said sometimes. In terms of my language, I mean, you've hung out with me before. We've had dinner. You know, I'm a colorful guy, and I'm in New York, and I could tell you, too, I've been sued by him, and I'm sure he said much worse about me. With that said, as you know, I'm a supporter of his, and he's a very, very difficult person to work for.
Bunch of words there, but you can take that as, yes, I said that. You can take that as confirmation that Michael Wolff did indeed accurately quote Sam Nunberg. Joining the discussion now, Kurt Anderson, author of the new book, Fantasyland, How America Went Haywire. He's the host of Studio 360, and Steve Schmidt is back with us. And Kurt, you've been studying the man named Trump for longer than the rest of us.
Back when he threatened to sue me.
Back when he threatened to sue you. You were a pioneer in getting a journalist getting threatened to be sued by Trump. Is this the Trump that you know as you read it in Michael Wolff's book?
Well, I didn't know he didn't seem as incomprehensibly out of control and stupid as he seems from Michael's book. I mean, for starters, Michael is depicting this White House that is just a madhouse of chaos and incompetence. And of course, that team letting Michael Wolff in there is a symptom of that very thing. Right. All you have to do is read what this man has written over the last couple of decades to know he's probably not going to be a friendly journalist.
Yeah, and Steve Schmidt, Michael Wolff, again, writing just in today's Hollywood Reporter. There's so much to cover with what he's revealing, and that's why Monday night when he joins us with the book, we'll be able to get into more detail on the book. But just on what Michael wrote today in the Hollywood Reporter, he said about Trump's staff, advisors, and family, my indelible impression of talking to them and observing them through much of the first year of his presidency is that they all, 100%, came to believe he was incapable of functioning in his job.
This conspiracy of silence in the West Wing of the White House, where from top to bottom, they all know. This is an open secret in Washington, D.C. His manifest unfitness for the office, the worry that people have about his unfitness, the danger that they understand it poses. And yet, for their self-interest, for their seat of power. They have not communicated it to the American people, who certainly our republic, our government of the people, by the people, for the people. They don't work for the president. They serve at his pleasure. They work for the American people. And they've sworn an oath to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. And we see this terrible behavior that's something out of a reality show, as opposed to the decorum you would expect around the most powerful seat of executive power in the world. And it is a remarkable moment to see it. And what's clear about the book, do you think ever, Lawrence, for just one instance, one day, anyone around that West Wing, that Oval Office said, we are the trustees of a great inheritance, and our obligation is to secure a stronger country for the next generation of Americans, to make life better for the American people, to advance American ideals in the world? For 1 second, do you think that that thought has crossed any of these people's minds? It is despicable and outrageous. This is an important book because it levels fundamental questions that have to be answered about this commander-in-chief's fitness. And we've seen his recklessness, his slurring of words. We've seen him in action over a year, and it's time that this conversation, I think, come more into the public.
And Kurt, about the credibility of the book, it has withstood all challenges. There have been no real challenges for the last 24 hours. You have experience in book publishing. You used to be the boss and the editor of New York Magazine, where the excerpt was published yesterday. You know there's a layer of lawyers at the book publishers that examines this. There's another layer of lawyers at New York Magazine. My experience with the magazine lawyers is they're more strict than the book lawyers, so it had to pass through both of those layers to get to publication.
Absolutely. As somebody who, another book I published this last fall was a parody with Alec Baldwin of Donald Trump's memoir, and the lawyering on that was intense. Yes. So imagine a nonfiction book, for starters. And yes, indeed, the 7,000-word excerpt in New York Magazine was no doubt lawyered by the magazine's lawyers and fact-checked by the magazine's fact-checkers. So I don't think the credibility has been significantly challenged. And there's a lot of what I take to be kind of sour grapes envy on the part of some journalists saying, oh, we all knew that. Well, to me, that's the problem. If you all knew that, and understandably, because you're a beat reporter, you can't sort of go for the jugular, as Michael could, with this book, because he doesn't have to maintain any relationships. Well, that's you should be welcoming the fact that this thing you all knew, that he's deranged, a child, a dope, an idiot. Pick whatever member of his administration you wish, who all used those phrases and worse to describe their commander-in-chief. Everybody knew this. We'd reported this between the lines, but this guy just comes out and says it. Well, that's not much of a criticism in my book.
And Steve, apparently the Michael Wolff book has already created one big change in the White House, the new rule of banning of personal cell phones, clearly an attempt to stop the leaking that makes Michael Wolff's book possible and makes virtually every other report in the Washington Post and the New York Times possible.
Yeah, of course. It won't stop the leaking at the end of the day, because we've seen for over a year the nature of the staff in the West Wing of the White House. But, you know, there's clearly no conversations taking place in this White House about what's happening in Iran, the situation in North Korea, the provocations the president made towards Pakistan publicly. Not that the substance of his criticisms is wrong, but should be delivered privately. The world is boiling. Here at the beginning of 2018, and the whole country is trapped in this dystopian, dysfunctional reality show metastasized into a horror movie, soap opera, that plays out every day on the TVs. It's quite extraordinary, but it's also quite dangerous. The qualities of character that we're seeing, the recklessness, the incompetence, the malfeasance, the self-interest, in the most powerful office in the world, presents great danger to this country and, frankly, to free peoples everywhere.
Steve Schmidt, Kurt Anderson, thank you both for joining the discussion tonight. Really appreciate it.